Brexit End Game, UK wears EU down as compromise looms. There will be a deal. The UK could finally make huge Brexit breakthrough with the European Union next week as Brussels makes concessions in key areas, with one member of chief negotiator David Frost's teams privately insisting there will be a deal. British negotiators are travelling to Brussels for the 9th round of official trade talks with their EU counterparts, with both sides warning time is running out on coming to terms on a comprehensive free trade agreement, FTA. Lord Frost will meet with the EU's chief negotiator Michel Barnier on Monday in the Joint Committee, followed by 3 days of intensive talks between the teams from Tuesday, dominated by the various issues including fisheries and Brussels' level playing field demands. If the talks next week are successful, Lord Frost and Mr. Barnier will hope to enter the tunnel, where the final details will be hammered out in total secrecy, at the end of this week. This would then lead to 2 weeks of behind-closed-doors discussions, with a final agreement to be put in place just after the next EU summit in Brussels in mid-October. The two chief negotiators are edging towards an agreement that would see Brussels relax its demands for strenuous checks on the movement of goods between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. In return, the UK would agree to follow some baseline rules over the use of state aid to prop up British businesses. This would mean the UK would not be forced to remain fully aligned to EU rules, as Brussels has been demanding throughout the 6 months of talks. Downing Street officials remain cautious over the steps that need to be taken to get a deal over the line, but it is understood members of Lord Frost's team have privately said there will be a deal. This would then lead to 2 weeks of behind-closed-doors discussions, with a final agreement to be put in place just after the next EU summit in Brussels in mid-October. The two chief negotiators are edging towards an agreement that would see Brussels relax its demands for strenuous checks on the movement of goods between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. In return, the UK would agree to follow some baseline rules over the use of state aid to prop up British businesses. This would mean the UK would not be forced to remain fully aligned to EU rules, as Brussels has been demanding throughout the 6 months of talks. Downing Street officials remain cautious over the steps that need to be taken to get a deal over the line, but it is understood members of Lord Frost's team have privately said there will be a deal. A Tory source told the Sunday Times Boris would be able to say with a straight face that there aren't meaningful restrictions on GBNI trade and they will get some reassurance on state aid. Senior UK and EU officials continue to insist Mr. Johnson does still want a deal, despite the aggressive strategy he has taken in talks so far, especially with the introduction of the controversial Internal Market Bill. The Prime Minister is also coming under pressure to secure an FTA from Michael Gove, the Cabinet Minister who is in charge of no-deal planning, as he is terrified of the combination of a crushing second wave of coronavirus and the impact from a no-deal Brexit. UK officials are now modelling the economic costs of a double whammy to the country's struggling economy, rather than looking at the two outcomes separately. Last night, Lord Frost made the rare move of striking a more positive tone on the prospect of a deal with the EU than in recent weeks, describing an agreement as very much possible. But he continued to warn Brussels to scale back its unrealistic ambitions in some areas such as fishing to finally come to terms on an FTA. Lord Frost said, "As we enter the final stages of negotiations, we are all focusing on what it might take to get a trade agreement in place. An agreement is still very much possible, but equally very far from certain. The last 2 weeks of informal talks have been relatively positive, but there remains much to be done and time is short. We have been saying from the beginning of this process that we simply want a standard free trade agreement like Canada's. Sadly, the EU's position has not been so straightforward and we continue to be asked to accept provisions which do not reflect the reality of the change which our exit from the EU brings. If the gaps in these areas are to be bridged, the EU still needs to scale back more of its unrealistic ambitions and work on more realistic policy positions. I hope this will be possible this coming week and I and my team are ready to work as hard as necessary to move things forward," Boris Johnson delivered on his Conservative Party general election manifesto to get Brexit done when his withdrawal agreement with the EU was voted through the UK Parliament, which saw Britain enter into a transition period ending on December 31st that left them bound to Brussels customs union and single market rules. Trade talks have been ongoing for 6 months but little progress has been made, with the two sides blaming each other for taking stubborn stances and refusing to give ground on a number of key red lines. The UK government has also infuriated EU officials with the Internal Market Bill, which seeks to override key elements of the withdrawal agreement and consequently break international law. This has intensified fears over a no-deal Brexit, but in a rare moment of encouragement, British officials are now confident a deal can be agreed with the EU over the next couple of weeks as a compromise becomes clearer.